Welcome to the MSDW podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at MS Dynamics World. On this episode, we are discussing the business leader's perspective on AI transformation, including a theme that people aren't talking about as much, failure. My guests for this episode are Prachi Mishra of Microsoft and Geoff Abels of C5 Insight. This conversation is by no means all negative. Both Prachi and Geoff see AI as a key to the future of business that will continue to grow rapidly, including at Microsoft. This episode is sponsored by the 365 Leadership Summit from C5 Insight, and Geoff helps us frame one of the key risks that he foresees: the emergence of AI shelfware and the loss of excitement or momentum within an organization introducing AI-related change. My guests discuss why change related to AI adoption can be challenging, how to improve outcomes, and what it means to build a robust and achievable AI-related roadmap for your business. All right, I'm here with Prachi and Geoff. Welcome to both of you. Maybe we could just start with some introductions. Prachi, welcome. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm Prachi Mishra. I am an AI business solutions engineer at Microsoft. Been here for about 4 years, based out of the Atlanta, Georgia area. Really excited to chat today about AI.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And Geoff, great talking to you as well.
Thanks for having me, Jason. And yeah, Geoff Abels with C5 Insight. I am the CEO of a Microsoft partner focused on and specializing in AI and Copilot.
Well, it's great to have both of you. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. There's so much to talk about for the present and perhaps looking to the future too, really as it relates to AI and digital transformation. And yeah, I want to start with, the topic of success with AI and what that looks like going into the future. It's a big topic, I know, but maybe I could ask each of you to sort of frame up what you're most broadly thinking about there. Prachi, do you want to go first when you think about AI and what it means for the future?
Absolutely. I think, having started at Microsoft before generative AI was big, and now seeing the way that it's transformed the industry into this game changer has been not only humbling, but also amazing, because I used to have a lot of anxiety about little things like note taking and trying to remember who said what in calls. And now I'm able to completely scale my work with the assistant Copilot, which is, essentially my bestie, my best friend. And I think that's just one example, right, of someone that lives in the tech bubble. But when I look at my friends, my coworkers, my family in other industries, they are all aware of AI. They're telling me how it's totally changing their day to day. So I definitely do believe that AI is the future, and it's definitely here to stay and change the way we do everything, whether that's things for leisure, for fun, or for work.
Geoff, let me bring you in here. And if I could, I just would call on an anecdote that I think you were probably present for at a recent sort of roadshow event with users, and people were talking about sort of different experiences, maybe to Prachi's point, of ways they've found value with AI in business contexts right now. And that's really what I should have said earlier was, AI in these business scenarios to solve business challenges. What are you seeing as you think about sort of success with AI within organizations now, or sort of as you think about what it means for the future?
Great question. And one I think that there's rightfully some skepticism over, because we've all kind of lived through, if you've been in business for more than 10 or 15 years, the standard hype cycle, right? So I've been there. I got involved in this stuff way back before there was even LLM as a term. I was running a department at what's now Wells Fargo, and we put together one of the largest data warehouses in the world at the time. We put pretty advanced AI tools up against that and did some pretty incredible things. It cost millions of dollars and it had a good ROI for us. But I also learned a lot of things in that. When I heard AI hyped many times over the years since then, I was skeptical because of all the other times that IT, digital transformation hype didn't quite live up to its expectations. But having also been close to that, when I saw things like ChatGPT and then Copilot come out, and I understood the potential for what they could do, I am not a skeptic anymore. I won't say that there's, not some hype out there that, might be overemphasized sometimes, but the transformational impact is going to be huge. One of the things I saw at the event that you mentioned also, Jason, is this idea that AI has reached 100 million users in 2 years. And that's a level of magnitude larger than any other societal transformation in recent history, whether it's a personal computer or the mobile phone or the internet. So that's kind of the big picture thing. But when it comes down to, all right, so So translate this into what's really happening on the front lines. How is this making a difference for businesses today? I give you a couple of case studies for things that we've either partnered with our clients to do or have been around kind of helping to enable and empower them to do it themselves. One client in particular, they were monitoring EDI errors, right? So EDI, electronic data interchange, that's just a way that companies for many years have pushed transactions over the internet or other electronic communications devices to more quickly process quotes and orders and invoices and shipping and all of that kind of stuff. Well, what naturally happens as part of that process is there are many errors. Product numbers entered incorrectly, shipping address is wrong, whatever it is. There are dozens and dozens of them. This one client had one individual who every day of every week had to open the various systems, look at the EDI error log, fix whatever the errors were, and push the transaction back through EDI again to see if it would successfully process the transaction. Through AI, we're forecasting we're going to cut that person's weekly workload by about 30%. We're going to give them 30% of their time back by looking at just that one area of their job. I can tell you from a personal standpoint, forecasters are saying you can automate 50% of the CEO's job, my job, with AI. Will it live up to that or not? I don't know, but I can tell you I've probably hit about the 9 to 12% of my job I now have AI doing for me. And the only reason I don't have it doing more is I do need to take a little bit of time to do some more learning or set up some more of my own custom agents to do what I need for it to do. So if it can automate everything from a frontline person processing transactions to a CEO trying to make strategic decisions, it's going to have an impact on everything between those two positions as well.
All right. Yeah. Well, thanks for setting up some of those examples. And I definitely agree with you, Geoff, that, well, related point, I suppose, is that any skepticism about usefulness does have to be, answered with, sort of positive proof of some of these benefits, because I think that's just going to be the natural sort of flow of the public or the general consensus on whether there's value in this technology, right? And I think that's kind of what we're here to discuss as well. One of the terms that you brought up as we were sort of chatting about planning this conversation was the term that I hadn't used before, and that's the idea of AI shelfware, and whether there's a future in which there are risks of these investments or investments not maybe being realized in terms of their value. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Geoff? And then we can, bring Prachi in for her perspective.
Sure, absolutely. And shelfware, in my understanding, has been around for a while, although it might have been around more in some of the limited circles I've been in. It's always been a problem with a lot of technologies, right? Way back in my early days, I started in what is now called marketing automation solutions. Almost called something else in the 90s when my career was in its very early stages. But we ran into this all the time too, where companies got the demo, they saw the incredible value potential of something, they purchased it only to find that they were barely using it if using it at all. And the phenomenon is definitely repeating itself with AI. And I will say it's surprised even me a little bit when I first started working with LLMs. It just seems so intuitive that, of course, people will adopt this given just a little bit of training. But I can tell you, even for us, we're doing programs regularly. We call them proof of value programs, where a client says, we want to, before we really invest in this, we want to prove the value. And so we'll help them get some licenses. We'll do some training with them, and it's extensive training. It's usually like about an hour a week for 6 weeks with a small pilot group and that kind of stuff to really validate these are use cases that are absolutely generating value. I can tell you, having had done that now a number of times, it unfortunately does not stick with just that much training. The early adopters, just like every other transformation, stick with it. That's 20%. But everyone else, the remaining 80%, without the right tools and solutions in place, you contact them 6 or 9 months later and you get, yeah, you know what? I'm not using that as much. And it's not that I don't believe in the value of it. It's just for some reason I have not been able to graft it in to my daily flow as much as I thought I would have been. And so there's more than just buy it, do a little bit of training, and they will come, right? Build it and they will come type of mentality. I can also share another use case with you, and that is we work with a lot of MSPs, managed service providers. Those are generally IT shops that are more generalized IT that handle help desk and sell licenses and that kind of stuff. One of the larger ones came to us and said, look, we have sold to about 20 clients Copilot Studio licenses, and they agree that there's a lot of value there, but they're really struggling. And we need you to help them. In this case, they said we're trying to help them create their own agents. And they're just super frustrated. They haven't been able to get the results that they want right now. And it was 20 of their clients. So a pretty significant number who they said, we'd like to get some help with those guys getting more up to speed with this. And again, it wasn't the power of the technology. It wasn't the capabilities. It was something else out there that was hindering them from actually getting the traction they knew could bring value to their business. So we call that shelfware. You're paying for licenses, but you're not able to fully extract the value of what you're paying for.
That's a super interesting story or situation, especially with an MSP and sort of the multiple clients of theirs that are facing this challenge. Prachi, I mean, certainly you've heard, I guess, all perspectives on this. I know you talk to clients, you work within Microsoft. Anything you would share on this?
Yeah, I think it's, really an actually crazy thing that's happening in our day to day because we're at this pivotal moment where AI is creating this chance to completely reimagine your day to day workflows, reimagine the way that a lot of our customers are doing their work. But sometimes, they're not able to get that full value. And like Geoff mentioned, it's because they didn't have the proper change management and user adoption strategy in place from the get go. And I know that that can be tough to really get the full value, that full return on your investment on these technologies without having a proper plan in place. I think even myself, someone who's been close to the co-pilots once they were initially launched, even I struggled to adopt AI into my day to day until it was that muscle I needed to exercise and go every day and practice it. And now it's like muscle memory. So I definitely see that in my conversations with customers. And I believe talking about Microsoft's customer zero experience, how even our own internal salespeople struggle to use Copilot initially. At one point, it might have been considered shelfware, but because we had the proper change management and user adoption strategies in place, we're now able to make it part of our workflow right from the get go. So that's something I like to share with my customers, whether that's in the healthcare space with our providers, payers, pharma, and even other industries too. I think every single person can benefit from AI, and it's just a matter of changing your mindset and really exercising that muscle that you don't even know was there.
Yeah, agreed, Prachi. I think what we have found, having been in business for over 20 years, obviously long before AI as it exists today was even a thing, change is always just hard. And by comparison, getting the technology right feels kind of easy, right? I mean, and that's always, of course, a journey too. But the human element is always more challenging than you can predict on the front end, certainly more challenging than most businesses can predict. The way someone said it to me once a long time ago is the soft stuff is the hard stuff, right? So the things that are, pretty hardwired and solid is actually easier to get right than changing human behavior. And you use the word muscle memory, Prachi. We actually work with a change management PhD. And one of the things he outlines is when we form habits, our brain is this wonderful thing that allows us to do things super efficiently without even using our conscious brain sometimes. But once it wires that process up, that becomes a separate organ in our brain. And we have to retrain our brain. It has to be a very intentional exercise. And that intentional exercise actually takes some real planning and focus from a leadership team to make it happen. So one of the things we like to say over our 20 years is we've become experts in failure and partners in success. And what we mean by that is about 70% of our clients have always come to us saying, we've got great technology. We know we do, but we're struggling. We're not getting the ROI. We're not getting the adoption. Our users are not extracting full value out of it. How can you help us go from failure to success by following the best practices? So totally agree with you, Prachi, on that, it is a thing that can be turned around, but it takes intentionality.
One challenge that I think is a little bit unique from what I've been hearing as, we're talking right as Microsoft has started its new year and sort of, it repositions with partners, sort of what a team like C5 Insight, Geoff, your team would be doing is sort of to align with Microsoft on their AI vision for this year. And one of the points there is, as Prachi mentioned, this idea of customer zero. And I think Microsoft's sort of calling on teams like yours, Geoff, to also sort of take on that role so that you can be, I think, a role model to your own clients. And so that when you do have these conversations with business leaders, you're talking from a perspective of, experience and authority, not just with the technology, like you said, but some of those organizational challenges. Is there more you can say about the way you are advising business leaders to be successful and the steps they can take, as you mentioned, with adoption, with some of the technology choices based on your own experience?
So, first of all, to explain customer zero, the idea behind that is to make yourself your own customer, right? Be a customer of what you do yourself. We've definitely adopted that and have for quite a long time. And actually, our first priority is, believe it or not necessarily to implement AI for our clients, although we're doing a lot of that as well, but it's to implement AI to make ourselves work faster, higher quality, and more efficient. And we're experiencing a lot of that right now. So we actually think we're going to transform our own business significantly just by adopting AI agents heavily and just some basic prompting into our business. We're experiencing some of that already. So that's essentially what the customer zero means. Be your own best customer of your services. And a lot of partners are doing that as well. So that as we engage with the greater marketplace, we're not just speaking to use cases that Microsoft has published or that we've done for our clients or we've heard people doing, but we can actually speak to the value it's contributed to. Automating isn't even the right word, by the way, because AI is much more than automation. But for lack of a better word, more deeply automating our business itself. I think that's actually, even that topic's a good slight tangent because that's one of the learning curve challenges is we are all having to think differently about how we think about technology now. It used to be, can I automate this process? Can I save some steps? And now it's more, can I outsource this process? Can I outsource this to an agent who can actually do more of the work for me? So it's some combination of the old school automation and this new way of thinking of I have this new assistant, this new agent who can do a lot more of the lifting for me and can make its own intelligent decisions for me to move things in new ways that we haven't even considered before.
All right, so Prachi, let me bring you back in here. Yeah, when it comes to sort of framing what AI agents are really able to do when you're talking to customers and prospects, how do you describe that sort of mix of automation capabilities and perhaps outsourcing, as Geoff said?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. And it really does call to the fact that, we have this massive opportunity to change the current growth formula we're on. The fact that we can actually outsource some of this work to be more affordable, scalable, and real time by outsourcing it to digital labor. But at the same time, you're the one that's constantly managing how your AI is outputting certain capabilities, the way that it is your co-pilot, but you're ultimately the captain deciding, hey, I like the suggestion. Maybe we want to consider this. Maybe we don't. But what it's done is it's taken that labor off of your hands so that you're able to ultimately decide, which path do I want to go down, making you that much more scalable and efficient. So with the rise of AI, we also have the rise of agents. And I like to think of agents as, these autonomous PhD students who you don't have to give much guidance to. You don't have to prompt them like an intern and say, hey, this is what you have to do XYZ. An agent is autonomously working and really streamlining those tasks that often are much more manual, things like leads and qualification that we have to spend so much manual energy on. So we have specific agentic capabilities autonomously doing this manual work for us without even needing prompting. And I think that's where it can really fundamentally flip that value equation from sellers adding value to a system to how AI driven agents are able to add value to your sellers and your organizations.
Yeah, Geoff, does this make you think of anything else when it comes to the actual cultural changes that are going to be required within an organization to make some of this vision really come to life?
The answer is yes, but the answer is also nuanced in my experience. And here's what I mean by that. There's a cultural change just around adopting AI every day, right? So for everyday users, we're going to be interacting with computers more and more like we interact with people, right? The interface of the future is probably going to have a lot more to do with voice than it's going to do with forms that we fill out, right? And maybe some type text here and there still. So there's some cultural change around that, around how we think about our jobs actually getting done. But what I'm starting to see are more and more companies saying, well, our people are going to now have to delegate work to agents. Even if you've never delegated work before in your life, you're going to have to work alongside this agent to get your job done. That's a cultural change. And more people are going to have to start saying, I need to shift a little deeper into the technology path. That does not mean every person in the company becomes a developer per se, but that means if you're a developer, you're developing more and better than you've ever developed before when it comes to code. If that means you're a complete non developer, that probably means you're at least going to interact with technology a little more strongly tech forward than you have in the past, right? Technology is going to be the new reading, writing, and arithmetic. Technology is going to become increasingly important. And the reason is because more and more people are now going to have to develop and train agents to help them do what they need to do. That means a transformation of some companies rising up and empowering what I call makers. Some people used to call them citizen developers. I don't particularly like that term, but more makers, more creators who are creating their own pieces of technology because AI is enabling them to do that. And it's actually helping them to bring a more significant level of efficiency, productivity, and quality to the business that you couldn't have done before because there weren't enough people or funding available in IT to do all of that work for the business. Now AI can do more of that for us.
Prachi, anything else you would add around making that next step?
Yeah, I think, it's also something about embracing change can be tough. And as a tourist, you're always afraid of change. But I think being one of the first to embrace it as a super user, as someone to say, hey, there are these agents out there in our organization. We should start with these specific use cases. Being that initial driver of change is the way you can be that key change maker. And that's something I always like to talk to my customers about, especially when they're looking, to begin their digital transformation journey. I think that's a great way to dive in with them together. Encourage adoption starts with themselves, modeling it themselves so that their teams can follow as well. So that's really something I like to position when chatting with my customers about that human behavior we have to kind of shift to look at how we can get better and do better.
Right. Excellent. Yeah. And Geoff, let you talk a bit more about sort of what you do in your work, right? Because I know you think a lot about success, you think a lot about process and what it means for your clients because you're dealing with companies that have these big technology challenges, but like you said, they're big organizational challenges as well. How do you approach that with customers?
That's the secret to success I think everyone's trying to unlock, right? I think I'd mentioned about 70% of people who come to us are coming to us with some level of struggle with what they're doing. And by the way, that's pretty close to industry standard. When you look at digital transformation, whether it's becoming a digital workplace or embracing a CRM solution or now AI, the first or second round success rate is about 20 to 40%, or in other words, 60 to 80% failure rate. So the good news is the same thing that has led to digital transformation success historically are the same two things that are leading to AI success that we're seeing in the marketplace now. The other good news is it's just two things. They are nuanced and it takes some learning to get your hands around them, but Microsoft has done a lot of work around these as well. So there's some great resources out there. The two things are simply this: vision, actually having a vision for where you're going to go with this. So not just kind of in adopting technology and hoping people use it to take the business into the future, but leadership taking an active role and saying, what is our vision for how this will work? What is our roadmap for getting there? Let's look out 18 to 36 months, maybe more, and put a plan in place, right? An old mentor of mine many, many years ago in my career used to take us through an exercise where he would dump a jigsaw puzzle out on the floor and he would say, put it together. And he'd walk away taking the box with him. And we'd make slow progress. And he'd come back and say, what can I do for you? Tell us about the picture. He'd give us a verbal description, come back in 10 minutes. How can you go faster? Show us a picture. He'd show us a picture. We'd go a little faster. What can I do for you? It actually leaves a picture with us. That's when we made the most progress. And I know that sounds like a very pithy analogy, but the reality that I've seen again and again and again in the business world is if the people in the business don't have a vision from leadership over where they're going with as much fidelity as possible, they wander. So the more leadership can engage and put that vision, what we call a roadmap together, that's the first thing. The second thing is execution. Vision plus execution is what leads to success. And execution is not just a project plan. We call it a center of excellence. It's this whole idea of, yes, there's training, but there's also empowerment of your people. It's special programs to get people almost licensed and online. It's governing and monitoring and continuously pivoting to make sure you're keeping your eye on the ball over that visionary roadmap period until you've actually created cultural change. So that was a lot of words to say two simple things: vision and execution. And Prachi, maybe you can comment on this because although a lot of people go and get licenses and get excited about it and then sometimes wind up frustrated, Microsoft has put a wealth of resources out there around adoption, vision, and execution that maybe Prachi, you can share some of those with us.
Absolutely, Geoff. And I think you have hit such important points on how, change management and adoption are so key to achieving success. And I think, Microsoft anticipates this. We want to be partners with our customers that are looking to adopt this. So we've developed things like the Copilot for Sales Success Kit and even the Microsoft 365 Copilot Center of Excellence. So not only do we have these wealth of resources, but we often encourage our customers to leverage our partners, very much like C5 Insight, to have, an external entity really guide them along this process, because change management and adoption, it can be tough to do internally unless you have someone from the outside kind of guiding you and coaching you. For example, I've been chatting with some of my customers where they have in-house, implementers, and change management and adoption training has been extremely tough to achieve internally. And I think that's where Microsoft really provides all of these resources so that we can have partners really help our customers along their digital transformation journey as it comes to embracing AI and agents.
All right, excellent. And yeah, Geoff, we should mention you're going to be bringing a lot of these ideas into more focus at your upcoming event, right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So for the listeners, if you're thinking, look, I'd really love to get immersed into a day and a half of exactly these things, these tools from Microsoft with vision, building a vision, having a center of excellence looks like, September 18th to 19th at the Ritz-Carlton in Denver, Colorado, we're putting on the non-technical AI and digital transformation event for business leaders and change influencers. So this is not a roll up your sleeves and learn how to actually do stuff with AI. There's tons of great events that do that already. This is more for the planners, the leaders, the visionaries, the influencers who say, I need to get my hands around how can we move forward effectively with this to create as much change as quickly as possible. And that's called 365 Leadership Summit. And if you want to get more information, you can go to the link c5in.co/leader. That's letter C, the number 5, in.co/leader. It's September 18th to 19th. You can go there and learn more and register for the event if you're interested.
It sounds like a great concept for an event. I know you've run it before, and it really hits on some of the things we talked about today. So thanks for sharing that. We'll have a link in the show notes as well, obviously. Well, Prachi and Geoff, thanks so much for taking the time to chat today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Prachi. Great to be here.
This has been another episode of the MSDW podcast. My thanks once again to Geoff and Prachi for joining me. And this message is from C5 Insight about the 365 Leadership Summit, taking place September 18th and 19th, 2025 at the Ritz-Carlton, Denver, Colorado. The 365 Leadership Summit is the non-technical AI and digital transformation event for business leaders and change influencers. The event will dive deeper into the strategic topics discussed today, including 6 case studies from CIOs and business leaders, and a panel discussion on the ROI of AI. Learn more at www.c5in.co/leader. That's c5in.co/leader, or check the link in the show notes. And that's it for this episode. If you want to get in touch with me, you can send me an email, jason@msdynamicsworld.com. For all of our updates, please do follow us on LinkedIn. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World, signing off.